Today we've got an official ceremony that is commemorating the return of ownership of the Cherokee Advocate printing press back to Cherokee Nation. We have had it in the Cherokee National Supreme Court Museum since we opened in 2010 on loan from Gilcrease Museum, but this day signifies that ownership being transferred back to us through voluntary repatriation. So the Cherokee Advocate printing press, of course, belonged to Cherokee Nation, but it's more than that. It's a tool of how the Cherokee Nation, once forcibly removed here to Indian Territory, how they communicated with their citizens and to the world around them. And so to have this piece back, not only in the building where it was actually used prior to statehood, but to now have Cherokee Nation own it, it's pretty special.
We have 2.5 full-time team members at Gilcrease working on repatriation efforts. So we are actively working with 33 different tribes and nations across the country on different objects are being repatriated, different material culture that we're working on. It feels very significant. I think it's part of our broader work with repatriation, ensuring that objects of cultural patrimony, other objects from our collection that rightfully belong to sovereign nations across the country are returned to them to be cared for, to be utilized, to be shared with those communities. We're very dedicated to this work at Gilcrease.
The Cherokee Phoenix has an unrivaled legacy when it comes to Indian country media. We were the first Native American newspaper. We were one of the first tribes to print a newspaper west of the Mississippi River. We were one of the first tribes to pass a free press law. We went even further with the Journalist Shield Act in 2012. I'm very proud that we have this within Cherokee Nation ownership now, because me and the staff at the Cherokee Phoenix, we all take our responsibility as caretakers of that legacy very important. And it's something we can point to and showcase whenever we do have people come to Tahlequah that want to learn about the Cherokee Phoenix, the Cherokee Advocate, and our journey that we've been on since 1828.
Thomas Gilcrease, who was the founder of Gilcrease Museum, purchased the press in the 40s. He really wanted to ensure that it didn't go to salvage, or didn't end up in the middle of nowhere, basically. He knew its importance, so he purchased it and held on to it. And then about 15 years ago, Gilcrease Museum and Cherokee Nation partnered so that it could be on display back in its home in Cherokee Nation. Since then, we have been working on actually getting it formally returned to Cherokee Nation, which isn't always an easy process, but it's something that our staff, our team at Gilcrease, is really dedicated to doing. It validates a lot of the work that I do, both as a curator at a museum, but also as a Choctaw citizen. So when I get to see not just Choctaw items, but any items from indigenous communities or other communities get to go home, whether that is through a long-term loan, like the press originally was, or whether that's through a formal repatriation like we're doing here today, it really gives me confidence in the relationships that museums, which historically have not had the best relationships with indigenous peoples or really any marginalized communities. It gives me confidence in how museums and those communities can work to move forward. So we have actually been working with Cherokee Nation on representatives on some of the new exhibitions in the building, including stories about how removal came to define Indian Territory and eventually the state of Oklahoma, how Cherokee artists, both in the past and today, are advocating for the representation and the betterment of their nation.